Shortly after the pandemic began, the Rhode Island Foundation created its COVID-19 response fund in partnership with the United Way.
And since then, the fund has awarded hundreds of nonprofits with more than $7 million in grants. $550,000 was just awarded to more than a dozen nonprofits this week. Tonight, we're hearing from the Samaritans of Rhode Island.
They tell 12 News reporter Alexandra Leslie why the extra help was so crucial.
Denise Panichas heads the Samaritans of Rhode Island, whose volunteers staff a 24-hour crisis hotline. But in the beginning of the pandemic, she had to figure out a way to staff that hotline without volunteers or an office.
There were a lot of people who were pretty hopeless at the beginning of the pandemic.
Denise Panichas took many of the heartbreaking calls the Samaritans Crisis Hotline was receiving when the pandemic hit. The hotline relies on volunteers. Student volunteers from Brown were sent home when the pandemic began. The Pawtucket office also had to close, so even local volunteers weren't able to take calls.
We were able to put these technologies together relatively inexpensively, so that now the volunteers had the opportunity to answer calls no matter where they were in the United States.
Panichas says she's not convinced Samaritans would have been able to keep operating without the Rhode Island Foundation's help.
Because we would have been focused on paying the mortgage and paying the electric bill.
In addition to the types of calls the hotline was receiving, she says the pandemic's impact on mental health was apparent when looking at the Samaritans website. It recorded 18,000 visits last year. She says 10,000 of those visits were just the first 5 months of 2020.
It provided us with a snapshot of what the impact of COVID was doing to people emotionally.
Rhode Island Foundation's president and CEO Neil Steinberg tells me the foundation will continue to distribute grants from the COVID response fund, even as the state of the pandemic appears to be changing amid the vaccine rollout.
Those needs that people have who are hungry, who are having trouble paying their rent, those don't turn on a dime. They don't go away right away. So while it might not be COVID, we'll always be responding to people who need safety net help.
The Rhode Island Foundation continues to accept donations of any size. We have a link on how you can donate posted on WPRI.com. I'm Alexandra Leslie, 12 News.